Hello, and welcome to Point of View, where we give students a place to listen, learn, and lean in. I'm your host, Caleb Smith, and today I'm very excited to be here with our principal, Mr. Downey, to ask student-submitted questions. As our first question, what was the hardest thing about being a principal during COVID-19?
Wow. So, Caleb, first, thanks for having me on board here. I'm excited to have a conversation with you and everybody else. The hardest thing for COVID-19 is really two parts to that answer. One is that the students weren't physically in the building. And when you're not physically here, it's so hard to develop relationships with kids. And really that is the best part of my job, is working with the kids every day, kind of like we are now. The second part is that so much of what we have been dealing with is outside of my control. So, we have to make decisions, and we have to carry out decisions that others make based on information that we just don't have control over. Yeah. So oftentimes, it's just very frustrating for everybody involved. And I end up having to make some decisions that I know impact people differently. There's really just no good answer or right answer through all of this. So it certainly has been hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. All right, for the second question, in terms of future years after the pandemic has ceased enough for a new normal of learning, what future changes will the school be adding, if any, to be prepared in case this ever happens again?
Well, certainly the biggest learning piece that we had is that we can actually still, in some manner, shape, or form, carry on with teaching and learning in a remote setting. Yeah. It certainly isn't perfect yet. I don't know if we'll ever get to perfect, but we can certainly do enough to maintain the learning. I think the changes that we're looking for in the future is really going to be centered around the learning platform that we use going forward. Right now, we've been leveraging Microsoft Teams. Whether or not that continues beyond this year, I don't know yet. But that is something that we certainly have learned to master and to take advantage of. So even now, when we have kids that are out and that are sick, they should still be able to access their learning without physically being in the building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And as we're getting into the school and the students, what inspired the idea of Titan Time?
Really, there were a lot of factors that went into that decision. We wholly understand that our student experience is a difficult one. We really challenge our students academically, but there's more to school than academics. We really have to look out for the whole child. We have talked about building relationships. We've talked about the social, emotional well-being of our kids, and those things have to be taken care of in order for our kids to be successful academically. So coming out of this pandemic, we've known that we have to address a lot of issues. We have to address the mental health concerns of our kids. We have to find ways to build relationships with our kids beyond just the typical teacher-student interaction. We have to have time to deliver lessons around these things, and that's where the student success skills come into play. And we also want to have time built into the day to support our kids. If a kid is struggling, one of the factors that we all struggle with is just time.
Yeah.
It's just hard. Our teachers are busy, our kids are busy. So we were very intentional in just trying to carve out a little bit of time during the school day to allow for those relationships, to allow time to deliver some focused lessons, to allow time for interventions and supports to kick in, and just time to take a breath during the day.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the biggest thing during COVID-19 and the pandemic at its peak was students being in isolation and alone. And I think taking that time for Titan Time especially and giving students a place where they can actually feel things and actually learn a lot more is very, very amazing. And I'm very grateful that you guys incorporated that this year.
Thank you.
Speaking about students in our clubs this year, we have an environmental club, and they're very, very passionate about composting and are wondering what would they do to go about getting a change in Northview, and any other students passionate about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
How would they come to you about any ideas that they have that they're passionate about?
Well, that's, you you use some of my favorite words there. Being passionate is one of them. One of our goals here at Northview is that, is to help our students find their passion and then to act on it and to use their voice to affect change, whether that's at a local level or on a more global level. So in a case like the Environmental Club, they want to tackle this idea of being more responsible in our community and our planet. And the one piece that we want to focus on, or they want to focus on, is the idea about composting and reusing and recycling. So I would encourage them or any other club, to come on into my office at any time. Literally the door is open for a reason. That's to signify that, hey, I'm available. Come on in. To come talk about their ideas. And that's my job, to help guide them through that process and to help remove some obstacles so they can tackle their goals and accomplish their goals. So in this case, that composting idea, that's a significant change in practice in our building. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to go into that. So it's really my job to help guide them through that, to give them the lookout fors, provide some guardrails around their decision making, put them in touch with the right people, to see if we can get that to go forward.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking on a lighter note, what school event did you miss most during the fully virtual school year of 2020 to 2021?
Wow. There's so much that goes into that question.
Yeah.
To narrow it down to one is pretty hard. But probably, let me just flip the question a little bit. Yeah. Every year, the one event that is the highlight on my calendar is International Night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's such a special night for our kids and our community to really showcase their cultures and their experiences, and to showcase their talents. I think that one event just so represents everything that is so great about Northview High School, that to not have that certainly left a big empty place in my heart and an empty place in our building last year. So I'm looking forward to that night this year.
I think it truly represents the diversity we have at Northview and a lot of the students and where the backgrounds that they come from and the culture. So I really enjoy International Night of everybody coming together. It almost feels just like a very good group of people kind of going along with each other.
Yep, and if you ever get a chance to see the second show that night, the B show, it is just wild. The energy that's in that room is just incredible, and it's so much fun.
So much fun. All right. For a more serious question with our students, does the amount of people in the cafeteria without masks worry you about the future risks that we're taking with COVID still going on?
Absolutely, yes. COVID is still a thing, and it's still a huge concern, and everything about it is still a worry. Just having 30 kids in a classroom is a worry. Right now we have 2 lunches, so that's about 800, 900 kids at a time that aren't necessarily in the cafeteria because we can spread out some other spaces. But nonetheless, we have a lot of kids in the cafeteria. It's a full cafeteria. Yeah. And obviously during lunch, masks are off, so people can eat. So it's a worry. We have been very fortunate so far that in our building, the cases that are involving students and staff have been relatively minimal, especially in comparison to some other schools. So it's always a worry, and we have some decision-making matrices to help us that if things get worse, we do have a plan to go to 4 lunches. Yeah. and actually cut that number in half that's in the cafeteria at any one time. We just haven't reached that point yet. So it's a worry.
Yeah.
It's something we're keeping an eye on, but we seem to be handling it well so far.
Yeah. I just think students, they should be I think they're relatively safe in terms of that, but I feel like, and sometimes we can get kind of carried away, but I think the guidelines that you guys are going to be putting in.
Yeah, it's just natural. A couple of things. One, our student body is very responsible. If you stand in our halls during passing time, 99.99% of our kids are doing the right thing all the time.
Absolutely.
And that includes COVID-related stuff. And at lunch, when the mask comes off, it's just a natural thing for a kid to get up and move around and talk and forget to put it back on. So those are just things that we have to keep an eye on and just politely remind everybody.
Yeah. In terms of the lunch and everything like that, why were the social studies classes moved to be lunch? Because in considering COVID, they were asking that wouldn't it be safer if the lunch was smaller?
Our lunches are actually pretty evenly divided.
Okay.
So let me just correct that myth.
Yeah.
So social studies historically ate first lunch because historically most of their department was on the 100 side of the building.
Yeah.
But because of some things that have happened over the years, most of their department is now on the 600 side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to keep the lunch divided by halves of the school so that we don't have kids in the halls when classes are going on.
Yeah.
So that's what led to that change. But
Yeah.
we've actually been able to balance the lunches fairly evenly.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. And also about lunch, is there anything that we can do to improve the quality of our food, which fuels our students?
Well, it's I got to tread lightly on this answer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The phrase quality of the food is subjective in nature, because our cafeteria, the workers in there and the prep that goes in, they're actually they meet and surpass every single guideline that is out there in terms of nutrition and quality. So it depends on the metric that we're going to use. If the metric is the student's enjoyment of it, that's just going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's the cafeteria and the food that goes into it is something that's outside of the principal's sphere of influence. I don't have direct oversight over that. So that that's a hard one for me to answer.
I get it.
But I will say this: I often eat the cafeteria lunch, and I enjoy it.
No, I have no problem with that. That's just this is one of the questions we received. So
yep, fair enough.
But all right. As we segue into this, what else will we have to occur for Northview to go back into remote learning? I know there was some brief little infographic that went into it talking about the cases, but what was your insight on that?
Yeah, so the Fulton County just updated some metrics for us to keep an eye on, and it's always based around the Fulton County Board of Health epidemiology report and the number of the spread rate per 100,000 of our population within each city. So currently, the city of Johns Creek, we're right around 300 in terms of a spread rate. If it goes below 100, then we can talk about masks being optional again. Mm-hmm. If it goes above 500, we start talking about lunches changing and things like that. But it's not until it goes above 1,250 that we will then have to switch to full remote status.
Okay.
So we're fortunate that we're a long ways away from that. There are other schools in Fulton County that have met that and are indeed in a full remote status now.
Wow. When I looked at the infographic, it said per 100,000. Is that considering the entire Fulton County? So
no. So it's broken down by city.
Okay.
So Northview physically resides in the city of Johns Creek. Mm-hmm. So it's whatever the number is for the city of Johns Creek that will then determine what happens at Northview High School.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. If we go online, what will sports look like?
They would continue, but the change would be in the audience. So I mentioned that matrix and the numbers that are in there. We would, as we kind of increase those cases, we would reduce the audience by 50%, reduce it down to 30%.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, if we were in that full remote status, we would have our athletic events with no audience.
Okay.
So that's what, we're committed to running face-to-face classes as long as we can, but we're also committed to
Hopefully.
That extra experience of athletics as well.
Yeah, I know this is sports in general is just something students really enjoy, whether it's football, softball, volleyball, basketball, any of those. We really enjoy being in the audience, and considering going back to remote learning and going with no audience, that would be truly sad because we didn't get to last year.
That would be a sad day indeed, yes.
Yes, so we're hoping that we can stay where we are and kind of just get better from here, not as worse.
So to that end, mask up, get vaccinated, wash your hands, stay healthy, and let's rock and roll. Absolutely.
Do you have anything you'd like the students to get back into the swing of, or something you feel like will take time to get back into?
The worry that I had at the start of the year is that for most of our kids, 75% of our kids, they had not been in school, physically in school, for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So it was really about managing our own expectations as adults and having to reteach and remind students about the expectations of them as students. It's so far been actually a much smoother, easier transition than I was worried about, so I'm happy to say that. Kids being kids are pretty resilient and can adapt pretty quickly. So just being back in school, I think everyone was pretty happy about.
Yeah.
And we've managed the transition fairly well.
Yeah, it's been great being back since it's been so long.
Absolutely.
Missed seeing you guys.
Yeah, we miss you guys, man.
We've been talking a lot about things that have changed due to COVID, but what have you seen endure over the course of this pandemic?
What I've seen the most of that just reinforces some of our beliefs is that at our foundation, relationships matter the most.
Absolutely.
The academics will come, but if we don't create an environment, whether it's via Teams or here face-to-face, in which our kids feel supported and loved, then that learning is going to be hard.
Yeah.
And probably every kid who listens to this podcast, they're going to remember a teacher not because of the content that was taught, but they're going to remember the teacher because of their personality, how they interacted with the kids, because they cared about the kids, they loved the kids.
Yes.
That's what you're going to remember, and that's what's really at our foundation in order for us to achieve our success. So I saw that carry through the pandemic, that a lot of our teachers were able to still connect with our kids and show that hey, we love you guys, we care about you, we're going to do everything we can to help you, and vice versa. And our kids did the same.
Yeah.
So that's
teachers were amazing, especially being online.
And our kids are too. It takes both.
Yeah,
right?
It takes both. Kind of get everything too.
So.
I know that we've created a new organization, if that's what you would call it, called Northview United, and we just wanted to ask you, what is the role of Northview United this year?
Really, it's to help guide and advise the school, and as the principal, me, in what we do and how we do it. I just spoke to the fact that relationships are important. Well, every kid, and every kid means all 1,755 individuals, they have to know that they matter, that they're important, and that their voice matters.
Yes.
And Northview United has helped to guide and shift us to make sure that we take care of all those kids, that we don't marginalize a group, that we don't unintentionally or intentionally silence a group of students, that we really have to be intentional to make sure that they have a voice, that we listen to that voice, and that we support that voice. And I think that's been the biggest advantage of creating that group, that sort of advisory board that's helped to guide us and to give us feedback. And it's just one of those things that we, especially the adults, we have to be intentional in what we look at. And the look at is the impact of what we do and how we do it. So often we do things, say things, teach things, highlight things, but we don't look at it from the other side, from the student's lens, to make sure that what we meant is indeed what was received. And oftentimes it's not. And oftentimes, we'll do something, say something, have a policy, teach a book, do something in which, a kid's sitting back saying, well, what about me? What about, my culture? What about my experience? That's not even addressed in anything we do here. So, we want to make sure that we value all those different perspectives and support all of our kids.
Absolutely. Considering the diversity we have in our school.
Absolutely.
That's a really great program that you guys have started this year. And we also wanted to know, what does the program have planned for this year and the years to come?
Well, so that's the $1 million question is, how do we carry this work forward? Right now, it's between last year and this year, it's really been focused on the professional development side of the adults to bring these issues to the forefront so that we as adults can have conversations around these topics and around our students and all their different voices that they represent. So now we're trying to pivot to, all right, what actions are going to come out of this now? What are we doing differently now? So some actions that have come out of it that I'm proud to say. Some are seemingly small, but they're important. Homecoming is coming up. Well, the student council, under the topic of Northview United, said, you know what? We don't want to have a homecoming king and queen. It should be any student.
Yeah.
Why are we going to identify them as a king or a queen? So now they're called just the homecoming titans.
Yeah.
So to represent that, hey, anybody can be,
absolutely.
A leader and be recognized here in our building.
Great.
And then some of it's deeper and more meaningful, all the way down to the texts that our students are reading, to make sure that our kids, if this is the state standard here that we're teaching, well, the vehicle we use doesn't have to be this one historical text. Let's put a variety out there that may speak to our individual kids, that our kids can relate to and say, hey, that's my story as well. That will then allow that kid to access that learning in a much more meaningful way. So we're looking at changing up some of those things so that we reach more kids.
That's good. And we also wanted to know, who is on the advisory board of Northview United?
It's parents, teachers, students, an assistant principal, and myself. This is a group of about 10 or 12 of us.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Sounds great. Is there a place where students can submit questions and concerns, and how will those be addressed?
Well, that's a great question. It's certainly anyone, and people do. My email is a public email. It's downeyb@fultonschools.org. I love it when students email me stuff because, going back to an earlier conversation about using their voice, being passionate, speaking up, I think that's wonderful. So I would encourage them to email me at any time, but also just to stop me at any time. I'm in the cafeteria a lot. I'm in the halls a lot. The door's open here. I love it when the kids come in, especially if they're trying to make the place better. Especially if their goal is to bring something to light that we can be better at. I would encourage anyone to reach out to help me out.
Absolutely. And as we get into the end of this, do you have any closing comments for our audience?
Closing comments. Well, first of all, Caleb and the team that's behind the mic that people can't hear, This is an awesome initiative you guys are taking on, so I commend you guys for stepping up into these roles and for trying to connect with our community a little more. That's fantastic, so kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
And then beyond that, at the end of the day, my job as principal is to try to make this school and this community the best that it can for our students.
Absolutely.
But I need help doing that. The principal is supposed to know everything, but quite frankly, the principal doesn't know everything.
Yeah.
I can only fix or make better what I know about. Oftentimes, I won't know about an issue or concern or something that's not right. And then I'll get the complaint, and I'll say, wow, I wish I had known about that. I would have done something sooner. At the end of the day, my job is to remove those obstacles and to support our kids so that they can achieve everything that they want to achieve. So keep talking, keep interacting, keep supporting each other, keep loving each other, and at the end of the day, we will all be successful if we can do that.
Absolutely. So that was the end of our serious questions. We just got a couple more for you.
All right.
On the fun side, so get ready for this. All right, thank you for that, and we appreciate it. All right, to our fun questions.
All right.
What kind of student were you in high school?
Wow. So we're going back a few years now, guys. I'm turning 50 this year, so we're going back 30 plus years here. I was, your A, B student, so I wasn't top of the class, but I was a pretty good student. I was into athletics. I was a soccer player. So I guess this stereotype would fit that jock idea in some level. But I went to a school that was similar to Northview in the sense that the student body was in to school. Like, we all loved school, and we were involved and did stuff and had fun with it. While I was clearly not as smart as most of our students are here at Northview, I think I would fit that same profile of Northview, whereas I loved school, I was into school, I was involved in clubs, I was involved in athletics, and just had some fun.
Typical Northview student.
Just not as smart.
Love that you're being vulnerable there.
There you go.
What was your favorite class in high school?
My favorite class was actually my senior year in high school. We had a graduation requirement, and the class was called Family Living. And it fell into that PE health area, but it was a class that was designed to prepare you for life. Wow. And we tackled everything imaginable about life, sort of outside the regular academics. We talked about religion and all the different religions. We talked about mental health and everything that went into that. We talked about marriage and what that meant and what does that look like. We talked at length about sex education and everything and anything under that topic that would come into play. And what made the class so fascinating and interesting and why it's so memorable is that in your senior year, you're actually mature enough to talk about these conversations. And that's what took place. I mean, we had very adult, mature conversations with our teacher that was about learning about all these topics. This is back in the 80s. So, for example, AIDS was still the pandemic at the time, and there was no cure. And it was primarily, associated with a homosexual population, with drug users. So it was still kind of like a taboo. Yeah. Well, one of our guest speakers was a gay man who was HIV positive, who had AIDS. So that's how, on the cutting edge this class was. Yeah. So to have that speaker in to talk about the real life experience was incredible. We had a priest come in and talk about his experience. We had a rabbi come in and talk about their experience. We had, all sorts of, we had a pro-life person, a pro-choice person come in to talk about abortion. We just tackled everything. everything under the sun. And it just armed me and my classmates with such a great education about life beyond the traditional standards that by the time we went off to college, like we were the experts in our dorms. Like when you would hear all these myths and conversations that college kids have, and you'd be like, well, that's not right. So it was a great class. It had a great teacher. So that was a really neat class.
Sounds very, very informative. I wish we still had that this year. I mean, in the recent years.
And we don't offer it here in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. We don't offer it here in Georgia. The state of New Jersey does offer this class.
Still to this day?
Yep, still to this day they have this class. So if I go back to my old high school, they still teach that same class.
Well, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Hopefully in the future years we might incorporate some of that, because I feel like a lot of students would need that kind of guide into life. I feel like a lot of students feel like when they turn 18 and when they graduate high school, they're just let off into the world without knowing too much about it, especially if their parents haven't told them much about it. So I feel like that's a great input that New Jersey is doing. If you remember, what was your senior quote?
It was, sometimes you kick, sometimes you get kicked, which was a quote from an INXS song, which was one of my favorite bands back in the 80s. And it was just kind of like, just roll with life a little bit. Yeah. Sometimes you kick, sometimes you get kicked, right? Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're not. Learning how to deal with those things and still move forward in a positive manner. That like just because you get kicked doesn't mean you quit, right? Yeah. It means you have to get back up and keep after it. So it was short and sweet. Sometimes you kick, sometimes you get kicked.
What is your favorite sports team?
I grew up my first 18 years in a suburb of Philadelphia, but then I spent 20 years in New England. And fell in love with the Patriots. If you look at my desk, I still have some paraphernalia there. So my high school buddies, who I'm still close with, would just be crushed if I don't say the Eagles. But the Patriots, I started to become a fan of the Patriots in the early 90s when they were terrible. And I got to watch this whole transition happen living up in New England. It was still just so much fun to see all that happen that I'm still a huge fan.
You still support them when the deflation of the
Oh, there we go. We're going there. I beg to differ on those facts. But yes, Bill Belichick has my undying support. The Patriots do. They're a great organization.
Respect. I respect it. What is the craziest hairstyle you've ever had?
Dear God, I rocked the mullet in high school. I big time rocked that mullet. I was a soccer player, so I kind of embraced that soccer persona at the time, which was having really long hair, and I owned that mullet back in the day. In fact, the funny quirk was that after soccer season was in the fall, so after the season ended my senior year, I cut it off, and I got a haircut similar to what I have now, just short. And my girlfriend at the time didn't even recognize me. Like would walk by me in the hall, like wouldn't even say hi. I'm like, honey, is everything all right? And she literally just didn't even know who I was.
Kind of like a buzz cut almost.
Dude, I had some long hair, yeah. And then cut it all off senior year. Yep.
All right. What has been your favorite marching band theme?
The marching band rocks every year, and they're a fun bunch to watch perform. We talked earlier in the earlier segment about International Night being such a wonderful thing. Well, the theme this year is that they're owning that international theme as a part of their show this year. So I got to go with this year because it ties into everything, right? I mean, we talked about Northview United. We talked about International Night. We talked about the great diversity of our school. So to have our band kind of own that and run with that, I think is super cool. So, I hate to give the easy answer, but this year's theme is awesome.
Yeah, I love that theme as well. What is your favorite book?
The book that I always go back to is called Trinity by Leon Uris. And it tells the history of Ireland through a fictional story that traces some families through generations. I'm of Irish descent. I've always been very proud of my family and my family culture and background, and that book just resonated with me over and over, and I've probably read it 4 or 5 times. And the story in it is just heartbreaking. It's the history of Ireland, much like the history of a lot of our countries. There's just a lot of heartbreak and difficulties there. And Leon Uris, the author, just does a wonderful job of sort of telling that story in a very, very moving, passionate way that I just found so intriguing that I leaned into and have read and reread a bunch of times.
Sounds like a pretty good read.
It's a big one. It's a huge book, so it's a challenge to get through.
More fun
Yes.
one. Who is your celebrity crush?
I got a couple there. Natalie Portman always knocks me out. I think she's just a stunner, and her acting is fantastic. But let me throw a curveball at you. Tom Brady is just like, if I'm going to crush on somebody, it's Tom Brady. Like, he is the man.
You are a Patriot stan. I can see it.
Yeah. Well, now I'm a Tampa fan because I'm a Tom Brady fan. He just has he's doing everything right in life.
Yeah.
Whatever he's doing in life is working.
Honestly.
So, the curveball I'm throwing at you is between Natalie Portman and then Tom Brady. There's 2 of them for you.
I think, is she off of Thor? She was in the Thor movie?
Yeah, I'd have to go through her history. I don't know.
Okay.
Was she in Thor?
I think so.
She's
I
just.
believe so. I think she was Thor's girlfriend at one point. I'm not sure.
When she was in V for Vendetta and she shaved her head, I thought she was just such a stunner of a person. And her acting is incredible. She's just great.
All right. As going more into Northview, which Northview clubs would you join if you were here?
Wow. Northview clubs. Well, of course, we have like 97 of them at Northview. Yeah. There's so many to jump into. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that one.
It's hard to think off the top of your head. Do you know most of them by heart?
Oh, dear goodness, no. That's that list of 97.
Yeah.
I've worked the most with the robotics club.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't know if I would join that one because it's such a commitment. Those kids pour their hearts and souls and time into that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever would have been able to afford to dive into that that much. But at least I'll give a shout out to the robotics team.
Absolutely. Okay, here's a very anticipated question.
All right.
What is your favorite BTS song?
See, I feel like that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Because, if you're a fan, you're being asked to narrow it down to one.
Yeah.
Right? And that's,
Very hard.
I doubt anyone, if you're a true fan out there, that you would narrow it down to one. So I'm going to give you a very superficial answer that I think Dynamite kind of represents their kind of attraction to everybody. Yeah. It's such a fun, uplifting, kind of poppy, cool song that, how could you not like it? And I think that's what makes them so popular is that really any audience should and could enjoy their music, man. So it's...
Me personally, I haven't listened to them, but I know I might get a lot of hate for that.
Well, in this school, I feel like you almost have to.
Yeah, I mean...
one of the challenges I have as principal is to try to stay connected to teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned how old I am. It's been 30-some-odd years since I've been in high school. So I try to keep up with things like music and pop culture and things the kids are into. And in our Northview community, if you're not a fan of them, then like you just said, you and I would get made fun of if we don't
follow the trends,
Right.
But okay, what is your favorite movie or TV show?
I'll go back to. I'll just give you one answer here, which is The Wire, which ran on HBO. which really told the story of the drug trade in the city of Baltimore. And it did it over 5 seasons, and every season looked at that central issue from a different lens, whether it was the police, the politicians, the drug dealers, the schools, the politicians, the newspapers. It looked at it from each different lens. So every season just had a really different take to it, and it was gritty and real and heartbreaking. What I don't like in movies and TV shows are happy endings, sort of like that Hollywood ending, because to me that's just not the real world. Like what connects with me, I mean, it's maybe I shouldn't say it, but movies that are sad, that are heartbreaking, that at the end like you're an emotional wreck, that you walk away from. You've experienced an emotion besides just that happy, sappy Hollywood ending. So the Wire is always a series that I just loved. And I think they just did such a great job with it.
Very good question.
All right.
Is it soda or pop?
It's soda. I don't even know anyone who calls it pop. If you're calling it pop, who are you?
I don't even.
Who are these people?
I don't know where they're from. And if so, what's your favorite soda?
I always go back to root beer. Root beer is always a special treat. Growing up, that was a special treat. It's not as common as as your regular Cokes and stuff like that. So a good A&W root beer is always a treat.
Really good, really good. What is your favorite thing about being a principal?
You know what? The funniest thing that I think that I find is one of my favorite is the intercom.
Yeah.
I get on the intercom and I have a captive audience of 2,000 people. And it just cracks me up every day when I get on the intercom that I'm at a point in my life, like I've got my master's degree, leadership degrees, I've done all these things, but my greatest thrill is I get to pick up the intercom mic and talk to the entire school, even if I'm just saying the pledge. It just always gives me a quick little thrill in like a very immature, funny way. That 2,000 people are forced to listen to me every day.
No, we enjoy it. I think we enjoy it. Just getting a little bit of your voice every day, just in case we don't hear it. But a very last question.
All right, fire away.
Is it ever not a good day to be a Titan?
Well, it's yes, because it's always a great day to be a Titan. Yes, of course it is. And I embrace that mantra. Just to remind myself and to everybody else that, like, we're here at Northview, we're here at school, like, it's okay, man. Like, we're gonna have some fun along the way. We're gonna do some serious work, but let's not take ourselves too seriously while we do it. And let's embrace the day ahead of us and make the most of it. So, it's always a great day to be a Titan.
It is. All right, so that's the end of it.
Well, thank you so much. This is a ton of fun.
We enjoyed you being here with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys, and thank you for everything that you guys do. I certainly love you all.
All right. This has been Point of View.